You can now subscribe and get 20% off with a Strava Craft Coffee subscription. We know a bunch of you have taken advantage of the one-time code, and now you can get 20% off your favorite coffee forever. You'll never have to put in your credit card info again, and they'll send you your favorite Strava Craft coffee every 2, 3, 4, 6, or 8 weeks with no hassle, no needing to put in your credit card information, no worrying about when you're going to run out of coffee because you know that Strava Craft coffee is coming straight to your door. If you haven't tried it yet, make sure you use the code DNVR20 to get in on the action and get 20% off your first order. Or again, set up a subscription, have it sent straight to your door, and save 20% every single time. Check them out, Strava Craft Coffee.
Number one for the one and only DNVR. 2 goes out to Zach, Mace, RK, and the bar. 3 for Mr. B in that old trophy case. Number 4 we're still waiting for. Well, bring on the chase. Out on the field, a mile high, Broncos win is our desire. Couple with a breakfast crew and a friend, bleed orange and blue till the bitter end. Come and join us at the DNVR. We are DNVR.
Welcome in to the DNVR Broncos podcast presented by MSU Denver Online. Make sure you check out MSU Denver Online and all they have to offer. We're talking 450 total classes, 75 different hybrid programs, and something for everyone at MSU Denver. So it's msudenver.edu/online to see everything they have to offer. And when you use the code DNVR Sports, when you sign up, you can get all of your application fees waived, which is a pretty sweet deal. So check them out, msudenver.edu/online.
My boys, what's going on? I think we can safely call this a terrific Thursday by the looks of this show, guys.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited, guys. I've gone commando. I'm not wearing underwear today.
What
wow.
the hell? Wow. What the hell? Well, that helps.
So don't stand up and get anything behind you this show.
Oh, I've got pants on. I'm just saying I don't have underwear. I am free and easy, as Bart Simpson once said. There's nothing like an unfurnished basement. Feel
that breeze there, Mace. I don't know how to regroup from this moment. So, everyone this morning woke up to a fantastic headline, courtesy of the folks at TMZ. Great headline writers, by the way, over there. And it's not clickbait. I mean, you open up the story and you dig in, and that's actually what happened. So, of course, the headline is Broncos Kareem Jackson. I've spoken to Deshaun Watson, and the quarterback has interest in trade to Denver. And in here, the quote from Kareem Jackson to TMZ, I had a couple of conversations with him, just with him saying Denver is a place he's interested in landing. I mean, sound the alarm, boys. That is the first hurdle and a very big one.
That's honestly potentially the biggest hurdle, because now it's in George Paton's hands. And before, there was a chance that the Broncos weren't going to be able to do anything in order to get Deshaun Watson. Because all he could say is no. Guys, he could say no, and then Broncos wouldn't have a chance. So now that he's interested in that, you assume that he would waive his no-trade clause in order to come to Denver. And man, we're talking about the Broncos having a seat at the table now.
Yeah, the biggest hurdle, though, that still remains is the Texans actually wanting to trade him and their willingness to play hardball with Deshaun Watson. So we're not at the point yet, I think, where we start saying, oh, this could be imminent. But at least now you have it, like you said, Zach, you have a situation where he would waive his no-trade clause to come to Denver. So whether it was the Kareem Jackson sales job, whether it was just taking a second look at the offensive talent on hand, the situation on hand, franchise-wise, there's hope. I had not had hope before seeing this. Now I feel like feel like the ball. I feel like the ball has moved just a little bit here. Now there's the chance at this. I guess I just didn't want to get my hopes up before seeing something like this. But now that Deshaun Watson actually sees something in Denver, you can dare to dream.
You can, and I'm actually worried because now I have the opportunity to get mad about this. Because before, like, I kind of assumed, as much as we talked about it on this show and talked it up and had fun with it, I kind of assumed eventually it would come out that he had like 3 suitors and the Broncos weren't one of them. Well, now, and I couldn't have gotten mad at anyone for that except Deshaun Watson, which I probably wasn't going to do. But now I can get mad that the Broncos didn't play ball. Like you got to get to that table and don't leave that table until Deshaun Watson is your quarterback. And I believe that very firmly. So if they don't get it done, now I'm going to be upset because whatever deal anyone makes for him, I'm going to say the Broncos should have beat that deal.
Absolutely. And we're finding out, guys, that we've prepared ourselves for maybe more than you'll have to give up in order to actually get it. I mean, we've been saying 3 first-round picks, 3 second-round picks, whatever players that the Texans want, you make that deal. And, of course, John McClain, Texans insider this weekend, came out and said it's going to take at least 2 2s, 2 1s, and 2 defensive starters. Okay, easy. Make it happen. If that's what the price is, George Paton should be on the phone right now saying, hey, look, I know you're not even going to answer. Maybe text him because says, hey, I know you're not even answering phone calls right now about Deshaun Watson, but how about this deal right here? And just give it something where they say, oh my gosh, okay, we can't pass up on this offer right now. Let's just make it happen in February.
Exactly. I mean, 2 firsts, 2 seconds, 2 defensive starters, the naming rights to the stadium, the key to the city, like whatever they want, give it to them.
So the Houston Texans stadium at Mile High.
Yes, exactly. That's the second time I've given out the naming rights to the stadium today. Because first one was May said put Kareem Jackson in the Ring of Fame if they get this done, and I said just name the stadium after him.
Hey, K-Jack Field has a nice ring to it. I'll admit. I'm down for that. You put a little 22 on there on the field to commemorate him. If Deshaun Watson's a Bronco, I'm already carving his Ring of Fame pillar. No 5-year waiting period. You go straight in, right? You go in as an active player. He could be the first active player in the Broncos Ring of Fame if he gets it. And yes, when contract time comes up here in the next 12 months, whatever he wants. If Deshaun Watson is a Bronco, whatever he wants. And oh, by the way, you're probably going to need Kareem Jackson beyond this year if you get Deshaun Watson because you're not going to have the draft picks to go restock at safety. You're going to need to probably maximize everything that he's got left anyway.
Well, and also something along with that, Mace, is just like Kareem said about Deshaun Watson. He said, whatever team gets him, you instantly become a contender. Mm-hmm. If the Broncos go into rebuild mode, especially with a young quarterback for the future, well, Kareem Jackson probably won't be here and won't be playing in his prime by the time the Broncos finally reach that point where they're ready to compete with a young quarterback in a couple of years. But if you get Deshaun Watson, just like Kareem said, you're instantly a contender. So then you keep Kareem because he's entering the last year of his deal right now. You keep Kareem for another deal. You sign him to a contract, not just to keep him here for thanking him for helping land Deshaun Watson, but because Kareem Jackson's going to be a player. He's going to be someone you need on defense to compete with the Chiefs, which you would be able to do right away.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people watching on YouTube, a lot of people watching on Periscope. We love if you come over to the YouTube side of things. It's much better connection, much better quality. So check out the YouTube side of things. Hop in the chat room in there. And, of course, if you are on the YouTube, we'd love if you hit a like, subscribe, and sign up for alerts so you never miss one of these shows. There you go. There's a nice little fancy motion graphic to show you how to do it. And, I mean, yeah, aside from the Kareem Jackson stuff, which he absolutely deserves all sorts of praise if this deal goes down. There are people out there saying, hey, the Broncos have a defensive rebuild on their hands coming up. You know, you're giving up so many assets for this. And I really don't see it that way. Again, you can. It's not as if you're giving up your entire draft for the next 2 years. Now, let's say you do give up 2 firsts and 2 seconds, which is comically low in my opinion. You can still find players in the 3rd round, 4th round, 5th round. You're still finding good players in there. So it's, to me, it's still an absolute no-brainer.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer, but the thing is, what you lose is your margin for error. That means you can't have a situation where you have a 3rd round pick and you miss. And Zach, we'll get RK back in a little bit. Zach, how scattershot the Broncos have been in round 3. There's been Justin Simmons. There's also been a Carlos Henderson. So George Paton would have to be really smart about how he used those 3rd round picks. And another thing that I'm thinking more and more, Zach, is George Paton likes to operate in volume. He likes to trade down. So in order to compensate for the lack of 1st round picks, you might be in a scenario where George Paton ends up taking that 3rd round pick and turning it into, say, 2 4th round picks, or 2 4th round picks and a 5th round pick, something like that, to basically try to restock. And then you just have to hope that the more bullets he's got in the gun, the more his chances are of hitting the target with one of them. So I'd be fascinated to see George Paton's strategy if the Broncos manage to pull this off, because I think he might be trying to turn 1 pick into 3 picks an awful lot just to give him more possibilities, because that's something that Rick Spielman did in Minnesota.
Yeah, exactly. You're right on that. But also, May, something that we have to consider here is how much of a long-term play this could be, because this isn't just you're trading 3 first-round picks or 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks away to have Deshaun Watson for the next 2 years. And so you're deciding, do you want Deshaun Watson or do you want first-round picks for the next couple of years? No, this is something where literally in 2031, we will have forgotten about what the 1st round picks the Broncos passed up to get him. We will forgotten about the 9th pick this year, the 22nd pick next year that the Broncos gave up. And hey, maybe in a couple of years, the 32nd pick that the Broncos gave up to get to Kareem Jackson. This is a whole different situation than trading for Matthew Stafford, where you're saying, okay, you're trading 2 years of 1st round picks and draft picks to get Matthew Stafford. He's going to play for 5 years. Is that worth it? Well, that with Kareem Jack or with Deshaun Watson, it's so easy. This is something that he helps you immediately, and then also he helps you for the next 15 years, potentially, at least the next decade.
I'm glad you said that, because really everyone would have to kind of play the long game a little bit. And the next say 2 to 3 years with Deshaun Watson, especially be like that 2nd and 3rd year when you're running low on draft picks, you might hit a point where you've got a little bit of a valley in terms of overall talent on the roster. But Deshaun Watson is young enough that, again, there hasn't been a quarterback this good, this young on the market like ever, basically. So you're playing the 10 to even 15-year game potentially if you can keep him healthy. Like you said, Zach, in 10 years, you're not going to remember the draft picks that are lost. You're probably going to be focused on the fact that in the late 2020s, the Broncos maybe won a Super Bowl or 2.
Here's my question, boys. What would Pat Bowlen do?
He'd get
Make the
Deshaun
trade.
Watson.
Absolutely.
Do it.
He absolutely would do it. So hopefully the spirit of Pat Bowlen is somewhere in that building, reminding people that he would get this deal done. And obviously, the Broncos have been, struggling to get players like this over the last few years in attracting big free agents. And I think part of the reason is the ownership that has caused complications for this. But this is one where you just figure it out. You figure out a way to make it happen. You figure out whatever you have to do salary cap-wise. You figure out whatever you have to do escrow-wise and contract-wise and signing bonus-wise, and you just get it done. And I joked about naming the naming rights, but that's another thing. This is going to make you more money than any naming rights deal or any money that you need to put away. This will make you millions and millions and millions of dollars to have a uber marketable 25-year-old franchise top 5 quarterback.
100%. Just think about the premium seat sales alone. You keep 100% of those, and Remember when Peyton Manning came in? Believe it or not, the premium seat sales for the Broncos, club seats and suites, they were flagging a bit. All of a sudden, Peyton Manning comes in and they sell them out. Literally, Peyton Manning paid for himself on that alone. And forget about everything else, more merchandise, more sponsorships, etc. And that's the thing. It's sort of what the Rockies didn't think about, unfortunately, in holding on to Nolan Arenado, that if they kept, if they lose Arenado, they may lose 20% of their attendance. They may lose $35-40 million in revenue. But if you think of those terms with Deshaun Watson, you're not worried about this. You're making the call. You know he's going to pay for himself.
Yeah, exactly. He's going to pay for himself off the field. He's going to pay for himself on the field too, Mace, because if you get Deshaun Watson, then there's a conversation. Okay, now the Broncos have the second best quarterback in the division, or at least there's a conversation there. We'll see what Justin Herbert does. But Mace, literally, there's no other quarterback right now where we're saying he comes in here and right away the Broncos can compete with the Chiefs. They can compete with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, especially with the weapons that the Broncos have. And honestly, Mace, there's a chance that we're talking about the Broncos have the fourth best quarterback in the division. And we talked about if they don't have Deshaun Watson. And Mace, we talked about yesterday how much of a nightmare it would be if Deshaun Watson went to the Raiders. And then in that case, if that were to happen, it doesn't really matter who you get at quarterback. If Justin Herbert turns into the quarterback that he can be, well, then the Broncos are hosed. This would then make the Raiders hosed. So, I mean, this would be a huge win for the Broncos. And then on top of it, you get to put the Raiders in their spot for just a long time to come.
Shoot, if the Raiders are at the table, Zach, I'm paying more than even that Texans price floated out there by John McClain earlier this week. If the Raiders offer that, I'm coming back with a bigger offer. If I get
could you imagine counter here? Could you imagine the bidding war if the Broncos and the Raiders end up being the final two? I mean, that's have to be the Texans' dream right there.
I mean, you talk about the ultimate manifestation of the Broncos-Raiders rivalry. This is it, because you're talking about literally a decade potentially being on the line here. One team being able to go punch for punch with the Chiefs and Mahomes. The other team basically probably being what Tampa Bay was for the last decade, floundering around at the bottom of a division where everybody else had a league MVP at quarterback with Cam Newton, Matt Ryan, and Drew Brees surrounding the Bucs in the NFC South. And I would say the AFC West could be that on steroids. I mean, at an emotional level, Zach, as well, I was thinking about this. Do you remember how we were all excited and buzzing during that Seahawks-Cardinals game on Sunday Night Football last season when you had Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray and they were both making big plays and it was exciting and you're like, these two are in the same division. Man, we get to watch this for the next 10 years, perhaps.
Yep.
That's how you'd feel watching Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson if they're in the same division. Don't you want that warm feeling involving your own team? That feeling of excitement, that feeling of hope, and also, yes, the feeling of, man, you can pencil the Broncos in for being on Sunday Night Football 3 times a year, Monday Night Football twice, 7 national television games. They're relevant again.
Yep, they're very relevant.
They're legit.
Yep, they're very legit. And so we've touched on just what this would cost the Broncos in terms of draft picks and players and stuff. Guys, let's talk about what some people are worried about how much you'd have to give up in terms of player comp, but then also what you'd have to move on from in order to make Deshaun Watson a Bronco, especially this coming year with the salary cap the way it is. He'd obviously just signed a big contract, which you would be taking a lot into that. And see if it's worth it. I mean, I know the answer for us is yes, it's absolutely worth it, but kind of show people what this team would look like with Deshaun Watson on this team. So let's just take the Texans' very generous trade offer. 2 firsts, 2 seconds, 2 defensive starters. Do we agree that in order to get this deal done and be really competitive, we're talking Bradley Chubb and Justin Simmons?
Yes.
Okay, so those guys aren't on the team anymore. So now we're talking, what else do you have to do? Because right now I believe the Broncos have about $15 million in salary cap space. You don't really free up much money by moving on from Chubb and moving on from Simmons. In fact, you really don't save any money there. So Deshaun Watson coming in, what's he making? About $30 million a year. So in terms of cap space, you got to cut roughly $15 million just to get him on the team, but then you're still going to have to make moves in order to free up some more space to fill out your roster.
But in the short term, though, Zach, his cap figure for 2021 is only $10.54 million. If you trade,
there we go. There
so
we go.
This year, you're not doing all that much. It's going to require some planning down the line a little bit because you see some numbers that pop up in 2022. You see a $35 million base salary. In 2023, a $20 million base salary. So you've got some work to do. But again, as we've talked about many times, you're going into a new age with television contracts and streaming contracts. You should see a significant cap bump on the other side of this. And this contract that has the 35 mil number in 22, the 32 mil numbers in 24 and 25, it accounts for that. Although by 24, 25, you're talking about the restructure. So you're not really worried about the short-term implications. That's the easy part. The hard part is planning a roster with that 32 million allocation, knowing you're losing a couple of years of draft picks. And that's where I would say, if you're the Broncos, you start planning and maybe you start saying, okay, how do we get some discounts on guys we want to retain? And so I would think about multi-year deals for Alexander Johnson, for maybe a Tim Patrick, to make sure that they're affordable and helpful on the other side of this, rather than letting this year play out and letting their value potentially go up. So, and maybe for other younger players as well, think in terms of getting those longer term deals done as soon as possible to get some savings.
Well, and Mace, that's why you look at the short term in order to do this, because technically you wouldn't have to move on from anyone else with there being $5 million less, but you likely will in order to free up some more space to bring some other guys in, or you can free up some space right now in order to get those contracts started right now, Mace, and have those count against your cap now to help in the future. So, I mean, we've talked about how Jarrell Casey and AJ Boye are not going to be back on the contracts that they're on right now. Maybe they restructure and take a way less, a big pay cut in order to come back. That could happen, but if you move on from them, boom, that's $20 million. Now you're at $25 million in cap space where you can sign AJ Johnson, Alexander Johnson. You can sign these guys that we're talking about to deals right now. And guys, we haven't even talked about Von Miller. He's probably not coming back at the $22 million cap hit that he has this year. So right there, you can free up another $20 million, or if you want to keep him for $10 million, another $10 million. And we're talking about the Broncos with Deshaun Watson having plenty of money to either go out and sign some other free agents. And if you get Deshaun Watson here, this is certainly an attractive place to come. Or we're talking about how you can start keeping some of your young core here.
That $10 million cap figure this year is an incredible blessing in this deal. I mean, that means, all the talk about, you'd have to cut this guy, that guy, the other guy. No, you don't have to cut anyone. You don't have to change anything. And especially since you're going to get some money off the books just by trading him, or trading for him. I'm curious if the Texans would be interested in Drew Lock. Just because, they would obviously have a big hole at quarterback. So, we talk what John McClain reported in 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and 2 defensive starters. I wonder what Drew Lock would equate to in that deal. Is it 1 defensive starter in Drew Lock? Is it 2 firsts, 1 second Drew Lock, and 2 defensive starters? I'm curious what he kind of equates to in that deal.
Well, what's interesting, of course, with Adam Schefter putting out there earlier this week that he thinks Sam Darnold could fetch a late 1. Wouldn't you think then that Drew Lock in such a deal might be the equivalent of a 2nd-round pick?
Could be. Now, Adam spoke to this directly, I believe, last week, and he said Drew Lock's value is probably a 4th. So maybe it's changed with the Matthew Stafford sweepstakes and how big he went for. But also, I don't think he would be a major piece in this. Maybe instead of trading Justin Simmons, you're trading Draymond Jones or something if you're throwing Drew Lock in as well.
That's fair.
Yeah, and again, fine. Go for it. And you guys mentioned this yesterday, but it is the last thing I want to touch on here. Getting Deshaun Watson not only is important for all the obvious reasons of having Deshaun Watson on your team, but when you sit down at that table, apparently sitting right next to you is the Las Vegas Raiders, excuse me. And because of that, you have to be extra aggressive.
Yeah.
And more aggressive than them, because they have a good quarterback. Derek Carr can cut it in the NFL. He can win in the NFL. Now, we've said for years that they need to upgrade that position, and I think they're finally coming to terms with that as well. But whatever they say, you have to one up. You legitimately, if you're George Payton, and I mean this seriously, if you allow them to get Deshaun Watson, you will end up getting fired. Like, to me, that's like it's just bar none for sure. You're pretty much saying your best, like, maybe in a good year you get second in the division. Maybe. You're most likely fighting for third in the division from then on out.
I mean,
and that's not even taking Justin Herbert into account.
Yeah, and Ryan, this is something that we've talked about. And like you're saying, you instantly have the fourth best quarterback in the NFL if the Raiders get Deshaun Watson. And it's an uphill battle to even get to third. And then it's a huge battle to get to second. And it probably is a huge battle to get to second with what Justin Herbert could turn into. And so if that happens, trading multiple first round picks in order to move up to number 2 in this draft in order to get Justin Fields or Zach Wilson is not a guarantee that you're even going to have the third best quarterback in the division. I mean, that's just how dire this situation is you would literally have to trade up in a draft and still not guarantee yourself to not have the worst quarterback in the division.
And let me just clarify.
Or you're accumulating capital, and trying to get the best quarterback next year. And that might be more attractive.
Yeah, and even if you get the number 1 overall pick next year, it's still an uphill battle to have the third best quarterback in the division.
Yeah.
In the case that that the Raiders trade for Deshaun Watson, and let me just clarify what I'm saying. I'm not saying George Payton would get fired instantly. I'm saying you're not making it to a second contract because you have 6 years where it is likely that you're going to have the worst quarterback in the division. And I don't know how many times a team that had the worst quarterback in the division had any success over a 6-year period.
Yeah. Yeah. You can maybe do a one-off kind of win. Like Peyton, one of the early seasons he was a part of in Minnesota, they limped to a division title with Gus Frerotte as the quarterback for most of the season, and then Travis Jackson starting in the playoffs. But then you look around what the NFC North was at the time that they won that. To pull that off, you had to have the Lions go 0-16, Aaron Rodgers in his first year as a starter, and Kyle Orton leading the Bears. And that's not happening in the AFC West, not at all.
Yeah,
and I think Peyton gets it. I'll say this: I think Peyton will be bold, and if there's a possibility of this, he will try to make this happen because he has seen what life is like when you're shuffling quarterbacks every couple of years and you're trying to chase. You can have some good seasons, but it's not sustained. And I think he's learned some valuable lessons from his time in Minnesota going against one future Hall of Fame quarterback. Sorry, Zach, but Aaron Rodgers is a future Hall of Fame quarterback, let alone 2. And I'm not even going to say 3 because I don't want to say Justin Herbert's a Hall of Fame quarterback. Not yet. So, but you're talking about 1, and then Deshaun Watson early in his career is also on that kind of trajectory.
Guys, I saw a comment come in on our live stream, which thanks for tuning in, everyone, especially on YouTube. And it was, okay, well, maybe Deshaun Watson's interested, but someone said that there were some reports that the Broncos won't be interested. No, I don't think that'll be the case. They were in on Matthew Stafford. They'll absolutely be in on Deshaun Watson. Now, does that mean that he's going to go out and sell the farm as much as we would be willing to? Maybe not. And that may be the case. But they're going to be interested because we've already heard from George Payton, but by his actions, that they're not going 100% in on Drew Lock this year. It's not Drew Lock or bust this year. They're open to an upgrade. And if you're interested in Matthew Stafford as an upgrade, I guarantee you're interested in Deshaun Watson as an upgrade.
if you're not interested in Deshaun Watson, you might as well just fold the franchise because you have no idea what you're doing. One last thing I wanted to say, and it's escaping me here. Oh, if I'm George Paton, I'm calling up the Texans today, and you remember on eBay how you could bid or there was the buy it now price?
Yes.
I'm calling them and saying, what's the buy it now price? What's the before? I don't want to get to the table. I don't want a seat at the table. I don't want there to be a table at all. What is the we'll take it right now deal?
Yeah.
And
I love that.
I'm trying to get that done.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I do caution though. I think we're going to be hopeful for a long time because I don't think this is going to happen anytime soon. I think the Texans are really, really going to dig their heels in, and we're going to hear more from Deshaun Watson, from leaks from teammates, from leaks from the media. We're going to hear more and more of this. I don't think the Texans are going to give in right away. So that buy it now may be more like buy it on eBay, and it'll come in 2 months or something like that. It's not going to be Amazon Primed.
Yeah, it might not even be that, even though the Texans would like to get some more draft capital for this year. But if they dig their heels in, guys, this could be something we're talking about it lingering into midseason. And then you get to the imagine a scenario where you get to the early part of the season, and if Drew Lock has some struggling moments out there, we're not just talking about whoever the bridge quarterback is the Broncos signed as a backup for this year. We're talking about, do they pull the trigger on a midseason trade for Deshaun Watson? I mean, that's the sort of thing that could happen if the Texans really draw a line in the sand and say, we don't want to trade you and put this off for as long as possible. So it's exciting today, but literally we could be talking about this in 6 months.
Absolutely. And I really hope not. I hope the Texans aren't that stupid to just try and drag this thing out. Like, he's not playing for you. It's over. Just give up. So we'll see what happens with that. We'll also see what happens right now with our DraftKings pick of the week presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Heck, if you want to get in on Deshaun to Denver, you can get 10-1 odds on that right now. Broncos tied with the Chicago Bears at 10-1 odds. Behind the Dolphins, 49ers, Raiders, Texans, Jets, and Panthers. So you can get in on that 10-1 odds on Deshaun Watson to be a Denver Bronco. But like I said, like we do every week, we're gonna do our DraftKings pick of the week. Zach, we'll start with you.
I mean, really quick, guys, hop in on those 10-1 odds. Those have gotten even worse. And with this news, those may get a lot better soon. Maybe 5-1 by the end of the day or something if people start jumping on. So that's juicy to me. But I got to go to the Super Bowl, guys. And I know we're going to talk a lot of Super Bowl tomorrow, but this was one that really jumped out to me. Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill both score a touchdown in the game, plus 170. I mean, I think that happens. I think they both get touchdowns. You combine them together, and DraftKings is offering just so many props that this was one of them of 2 touchdown scores in the game. Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, both are going to score a touchdown in this game, plus 170. I love it.
That's solid. I mean, the other thing is, like, I hate to say this, but when teams are as good as they are, when offenses are as good as they are, they can get, like, principal touchdowns. And what I mean by that is, like, so let's say Kelce scores the first one. The next one, they can be like, let's get one for Tyreek.
All right.
And, like, Peyton Manning used to do that all the time. Maybe not on the stage of the Super Bowl, but just, hey, let's make sure we spread the love around a little bit. We want everyone to get a touchdown. They don't want a Walter Payton scenario where, he doesn't get in the end zone and the fridge does instead. They want both. So that's one thing I like about that. I'm hoping that it doesn't happen and they score 0 points. But, what can you do?
And Ryan, this is also something that just makes fans feel a little better when that happens, because you probably know at least one of those are going to happen. If they both happen, may mean the Chiefs are going to win the game. So it just helps Broncos fans feel a little better if that does happen.
I'm taking my entire budget
for
Super Bowl betting and just putting it on Chiefs money line. Obviously, the budget means the money I'm willing to lose. I want to lose that money, but if I don't, at least I could profit off of it.
So you're not saying the mortgage. The mortgage isn't going on it.
No, not quite the mortgage. Maybe some of my, so just some winnings.
Exactly. Love it.
All right, Mace, what do you got?
You know what? I'm looking at this weather forecast calling for rain, and obviously, as I alluded to on Twitter last night, not the muddy track on a rainy day that you saw when the Bucs and Chiefs played many years ago, the famous Monsoon Bowl of Week 16 in 1979 at the old Tampa Stadium, where basically you had all these NFL films clips that are going to be played until the end of time of guys splashing and water cascading over. But some messy conditions could lead to some mistakes. And so I'm looking at the odds on scoring a touchdown in the game. Any other Kansas City Chiefs player, 13-4, other than guys named, and you've got, of course, guys named like Sammy Watkins, Mecole Hardman, all the usual suspects. Any other Tampa Bay Buccaneers player, 4-1 odds. I would take either one of those right there. Somebody other than all these offensive players named, because I'm expecting a defensive touchdown in this game.
Wow. That is a big-time shot caller over there.
Yeah, that certainly is, because I got to tell you what, if I was betting on that, I would put half my money on Tom Brady and half my money on Patrick Mahomes.
And that's fine, but I can see a scenario where you've got Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul coming off the edge. They beat the Chiefs, reserve tackles that they've got out there. They force a throw. Maybe Patrick Mahomes is a little bit behind Travis Kelce. It bounces off the hand and then into the hands of, say, Levante David, and he takes off and scores. That's the kind of thing I'm betting on.
Oh, man, that would be – wouldn't it be so cool for Shaq Barrett to be Super Bowl MVP, Super Bowl 55 MVP for number 58?
Do we have odds? Do we have odds on MVP on here right now? Okay.
Yes. You can find that. I don't want to leave where my page I'm on here with my pick of the week, but yeah, you can find that in there somewhere. I know Zach gave out Patrick Mahomes to win Super Bowl MVP as his pick of the week last week.
Yep, and it was plus 100, and then at the same time, Tom Brady was plus 210, I think.
You got it there, Mace, or no?
I can't see. Yeah, I can find like all these stat props. I can't find MVP props.
All right, I'll find it. I'm an expert at navigating the DraftKings sportsbook.
Yeah.
Super Bowl MVP. So Patrick Mahomes minus 106 now. Tom Brady plus 210 still. Shaquille Barrett. That would be 50-1.
I'm putting down a Stallbuck right there on Shaq Barrett.
I love it. Oh, man.
I mean, if they win, it's going to take a Herculean defensive effort from the pass rush, in my opinion. So it's possible for sure. It's pretty rare for a non-quarterback to win it. But in this one, I mean, even if Shaq Barrett has like 3 sacks, including a strip sack, it's still going to be hard for him to win it just because Tom Brady is on his team. But 50-1, worth a sprinkle. And
it would be unusual because with the Tom Brady Super Bowls that he's won, he's been MVP 4 times. The other 2 times it was a wide receiver, Deion Branch or Julian Edelman as the MVP. So it's either Tom Brady or the guy that Tom Brady is getting the ball to. So I admit I'm betting on an anomaly here. And of course, we have not had a defensive Super Bowl MVP since the great Von Miller back in Super Bowl 50. It's time for another one.
I love it. I would love to see that happen for Shaq, and of course, because that would mean that the Buccaneers won.
Yeah.
I was actually on with our friends on Broncos Country Tonight last night, and Benjamin Albright was trying to make the case for why Broncos fans should be cheering for the Chiefs, and it was very unconvincing.
Well, you know what? In my daughter's classroom, they took a vote on who the class wanted to win the Super Bowl. And sadly, the Chiefs won. I'm thinking, in Denver, what's going on? And my daughter passionately tried to make the case for the Bucs, even lobbying They have a pirate ship in their stadium.
All right. The
Isn't
NFL
that
won't even
cool?
let them use it this week.
Yeah, they can't fire the cannons except when the team comes out. I'm disappointed because you're supposed to fire the cannons after the touchdown. And then the other tradition is when the Bucks get inside the 20-yard line, basically it means they're on the attack. All the red flags go up around the stadium, their red flag logo, because the origin of that logo is, oh, you lost me there. Sorry.
Oh, we still got you.
We got you.
Okay. Oh, wow. I just saw myself spinning. The origin of that logo is that back in the old pirate days, that they would raise a red flag when it was time to attack. And so these are the things that we're missing out on that should be the case because it's in their freaking home stadium. This has never happened before. Let them let the Bucks have the cool traditions. Show them to the entire country, the things that I hold so dear. Share them with the world. But no,
They are. They're sharing.
enjoy.
They're sharing Tom Brady with us, Mace. It's nice.
Tom Brady isn't the Tampa Bay tradition.
He's their winning tradition now.
Oh gosh. Oh, and look, don't think of it as rooting for Tom Brady, like you said. Think of it as rooting for Shaq Barrett.
Right.
I think of it as rooting against the Chiefs.
You don't want Andy Reid to have a double cheeseburger after the game? He's already got one lined up.
Well,
I'm sure,
I mean,
I'm sure he'll have it win or lose, right?
he said that he has it waiting for him if they win, and I'm thinking like, wow. He said that like 6 days before the game. That could be dangerous. That could be the way that the Chiefs dynasty ends.
He's too hungry for it.
Yeah, well, I mean, a 6-day-old burger could cause some serious damage.
Oh, wow, that could.
All right, my pick of the week here. Nuggets and Lakers go clashing heads tonight in a rematch of last season's Western Conference Finals and a matchup of the two MVP favorites, according to DraftKings Sportsbook right now. LeBron James at number 1, and of course, Nikola Jokic at number 2. I call these narrative games when it comes to certain things like this, and this is a narrative game for Nikola Jokic. If he's going to beat LeBron in the MVP race, he doesn't necessarily have to beat him tonight, but he has to play really, really well in this game. And I think he knows that for the first time ever. I think he's cognizant of this stuff and cares about it a little bit. And so I like all Nikola Jokic props tonight. But the one that I'm going to go in on that I think is the most lock is points. Over 23.5 points for Jokic tonight. That's my lock of the night and my pick of the week. I'm on a, 4-week win streak just going on Miko Rantanen shots.
Yep.
Unfortunately, COVID has taken away the Avs game from us. So no Miko shots tonight. I got to go to my other guy. Not Miko, but Nikola Jokic. He's going big tonight. Triple-double plus 400. Worth a look, too.
Man, 23.5. That just seems like easy cheese right there.
Yes. Yes, it is. But okay. Like we said, Deshaun Watson 10-1 right now. That could move any second. Fun conversation today, boys. Exciting day, I would say, for the Broncos. We will have a close eye on everything going on with this, and hopefully this is just the first domino in a few to come when it comes to Deshaun Watson. We appreciate everyone for tuning in with us on the live side of things. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, sign up for alerts if you're on YouTube. We love when you watch on YouTube. But for now, that's going to wrap it up on the live side of things.